Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Old Man and the Reed. My name is Jerry. Today I'm going to be doing the second part of a series of videos I'm doing on the Nobel Prize winners that I've read. I've done one previous so far. That was from 1901 to 1928. And this video, I'll be covering the books from 1929 to 1953. I should mention these are the books I've read by Nobel Prize winners, and I'll just be showing the books themselves. I won't be discussing much about them at all. I plan on doing individual videos later discussing the author and the books. So with that, I'll begin. So in 1929, the winner was Thomas Mann from Germany. He wrote novels, short story, and I've read a few of his books. Probably his best known book is Buddenbrooks. Next is Death in Venice. Dr. Faustus. The Magic Mountain. Joseph the Provider. This is actually part of a series of books, and this is the only book I've read from that series. The Holy Sinner. And finally, the last book is Stories of 3 Decades. So it's a short story compilation. Then, in 1930, the winner was Sinclair Lewis. He's one of the writers that I really enjoy reading, and I think I've read almost everything he's written. I'm not sure if I have everything, but close to it. So the first one is Aerosmith. And I should mention, Sinclair Lewis wrote a lot of satires of modern history or modern living, and he wrote them at the first of over 100 years ago anyway. So this is like modern medicine. So it's kind of just enjoyable just from that viewpoint. Bethel Merriday. Dodsworth. The Man Who Knew Coolidge, a book I really hadn't heard of, but I really enjoyed it. It was really good. Cass Timberlane. Main Street. Elmer Gantry. Our Mr. Wren. It Can't Happen Here. Babbitt. The Prodigal Parents. King's Blood Royal. Man Trap. Ann Vickers. World So Wide? The God Seeker. And a few, let's see, this is Gideon Planish. Harry. This is If I Were Boss, and it's short stories he wrote at the beginning of his career. Free Air, book I really enjoyed. It's about a young woman who's driving across country, and this was back when roads were just basically mud and dirt. Then The Job, and finally The Trail of the Hawk. And that's everything I've got from Sinclair Lewis. Then in 1931, the winner was Eric Karlstedt, and he's from Sweden. He wrote poetry, and I've read just the one book of poetry, Arcadia Borealis, and it's got a torn cover. Next is John Galsworthy of the UK. He wrote novel, and he's known primarily for the Forsyte Saga, and that's what I've read. And this is actually three, that a book series in one volume, and that's all I've read by him. In 1933, the winner was Ivan Bunin. He's from Russia, and he wrote short story and novel and poetry, I guess. The first I have is The Gentleman from San Francisco and Other Stories. The Village. This is a short story compilation, Sunstroke. Cursed Days. And I guess that's everything by Bunin that I've read. 1934, the winner was Luigi Pirandello of Italy. He wrote drama, novel, and short story, and I've read, looks like 4 of his books. The first is The Late Mattia Pascal. This is a small little short story collection, The Oil Jar. This is another short story collection, Stories for the Years. And finally, One, None, and 100,000. And it was really, I enjoyed this book quite a bit. Okay, in 1936, the winner was Eugene O'Neill from the U.S., and he wrote drama, and I've only read one book, and this is The Complete Plays, 1932 to 1943. In 1937, the winner was Roger Martin Dugard. He wrote novel, and he was from France, and I've only read one book by him. Lieutenant Colonel de Montmartre, and that's everything I've read from him, the only book. In 1938, the winner was Pearl Buck, and I read a few of her books. Probably her best known book, The Good Earth. Then The Living Reed. The Big Wave. It's a short little book, but I just happened to read this about the same time as the Japanese tsunami that occurred a few years ago. Next is Pavilion of Women. And finally, in Imperial Woman. In 1939, the winner was Riemel Sillenpaw. Franz Sillenpaw. And I've just read the one, Meek Heritage. Okay, then 1940 to 41, the years of World War II, there were no awards given. But in 1944, the winner was Johan Jensen from Denmark. He wrote novel and short story, and I've read just one book by him, The Fall of the King. In 1945, the winner was Gabriela Mistral of Chile. She wrote poetry, and I've read two of her books. This is Selected Poems by Gabriela Mistral. And then the other book I have is Selected Prose and Prose Poems. Okay, 1946 is an author I've read quite a bit from, Hermann Hesse of Germany. He wrote novel and poetry, and the first book I have is Steppenwolf. Then A Journey to the East. Peter Kamenzind. Nope. Gertrude. Strange News from Another Star. Klingsrohr's Last Summer. Beneath the Wheel. Demian. Probably his best known book, Siddhartha. It's actually a book I first read back in the late 60s, and this is, I think, the third copy of it I've owned, but Siddhartha. This is Stories of 5 Decades. Short little book, In the Old Sun. Pector's Metamorphosis. If the War Goes On. Another one of my very favorite books of his, Narcissus and Goldman. This is Roshold. The Glass Bead Game. And finally, the last of his books is an autobiographical writings, and that's everything I've read from Hesse. Okay, then starting in 1947, the winner was André Gide of France. He wrote novel, drama essays, and I've read a couple of his books. Straight is the Gate, and The Immoralist. In 1948, the winner was T.S. Eliot, and I've read two of his books. He's from the UK. He wrote poetry and essay, and the first that I have is a collection of critical essays, and then the complete poems and plays, 1909 to 1950. Okay. Next is William Faulkner from the U.S. He wrote novel and short stories, and I've read quite a few of his books. First is The Hamlet. As I Lay Dying, I think this is my favorite Faulkner book. If I Forget Thee, Jerusalem. Soldier's Pay. This is the collected stories of William Faulkner. Absalom. The Reavers. The Mansion. Requiem for a Nun. A Fable. Sanctuary. Light in August. Intruder in the Dust. Go Down, Moses. And finally, the last of them is The Sound and the Fury. Then in 1950, the winner was Bertrand Russell of the UK. He wrote philosophy and essay, and I've read 3 of his books, and I really enjoy his books basically because his philosophy and mine really coincide. So the first is Religion and Science. Next, Mysticism and Logic. And finally, On God and Religion. The next in 1951 was Per Langervist of Sweden. He wrote poetry, novel, and short story, and I've read a few of his. The first is The Dwarf. Next, The Sibyl. Guest of Reality. Herod and Marion. Barabbas. And finally, The Eternal Smile. And this is 3 stories in one. Then in 1952, the winner was Francois Marillac of France. He wrote novel and short stories, and I've read a few of his. The first is The Knot of Vipers. Then Teresa Desquaroux. The Woman of the Pharisees. The Lamb. A Kiss for the Leper. And finally, Young Man in Chains. And then to conclude this part of the series I'm doing, in 1953, the winner was Winston Churchill, not known as a writer, but he actually is quite a good writer. And I've only read one book. He's from the UK. He wrote History and Essay, and this is The Gathering Storm, Volume 1. That's all I've read from him. So that ends this video. So I'll be doing a third one of the Nobel starting in 1954 as soon as I can get the new books sorted out. Thank you.